Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj, and I'm your host for A Livelihood, New Adventures as We Age. And on A Livelihood, I like to interview people over age 50 who are starting some new adventures. And these people are often inspirational and can be really role models for people entering the third age. So today I'm going to introduce you to Joanne Hadlock. And Joanne has been a career transitions coach for many years, but now she has done something that is, a little bit more whimsical than that. Let's hear about it.
Hi, Karma. I think you're speaking largely of the book that I wrote recently,
Yes.
which I have a copy of here, called Yard Sale Savvy.
Yard Sale Savvy.
And
what's the subtitle?
The Ultimate Guide to Bargains, Treasures, and Fun. And this came out of really a long-standing, probably over 40 years, and it was somewhat in keeping with growing up, where my parents lived during the Depression, and so the watchword in my family was security and not being in debt. I was easily hooked because
you grew up in a family that was pretty frugal.
That's right, and it was really a very strongly instilled value, which I still hold today.
So you like the idea of recycling too?
Yes, I mean that I would say is more the more high-minded notion is that for some people it's really an activity that can really enable them to save their money for other things that they need without necessarily feeling deprived. And so it's been fun, and then there's sort of the art of the chase. And so because I just knew so much about them, and I think I've mentioned to you kind of the expression, they're in my bones, I thought I would like to write about them in a rather whimsical way. And it was something that the book I dedicated to my mother, because she's the one who taught me the value of frugality. And so that it was just a fun adventure and an enjoyable project.
So tell us about maybe a few of the chapters.
Okay. Well, each chapter has a quote and also a cartoon attached to it. And one of the chapters is the profile of the thrifter. And I thought about, well, what kind of people do you meet in this endeavor? And so I designed, although someone else did the actual cartoons, I designed the cover with the creative person who can pick up a piece of nothing and somehow create something artistic from it, or the practical person who really does need things, or the altruist who's always picking things up for her niece or her daughter or whomever. And the dealer, he has kind of a calculating look on his face. And it was both an outlet for something I felt like I had a lot of information around, and it's kind of a gift book that you might give someone who just loves to go to yard sales.
And you told me that you actually designed the cartoons.
Yes, it was. I did most of them, but it became then a joint endeavor with my husband because he's a little more reluctant a yard sailor, but he certainly has been doing it sometimes along with me for as many years.
So how long did it take you to write it?
Well, there are two answers. One is probably
40 years.
Yes, no, maybe 4 years. But actually, there was the stop and start. I actually had the inspiration, and I would say it was outlined and 2/3 written in a matter of just a few weeks. But then I put it down, and I guess it took me a while to think I could really publish something, and now in the era of self-publishing.
If someone wants to buy the book, where would they go online?
Well, they could certainly use the traditional routes of going to Amazon, or they can actually go to Sandy Pond Press
And it's called Yard Sale Savvy.
Yard Sale Savvy. For a long time I thought about the art of thrifting, but once I thought about Yard Sale Savvy, it had the right ring to it.
I know you love to write, Joanne,
Yes.
and that you write on some more serious subjects. So what are some of the things that you like to write about?
Well, my field of focus and training has been career counseling, and I'm in the beginning stages of actually writing a book for demystifying the process, with the audience being people who may or may not choose to avail themselves of career counseling, and what to expect and what's reasonable to both ask and what they may be responsible for, and when are the choice points when you're more likely to want or need help. I've written over the years, especially when I worked in the university, guidebooks for students in terms of choosing careers or, specifically focused on how to apply to medical school or whatever. But more recently, I have been doing some creative writing, and I just enjoy the process of writing.
So you mentioned your creative parts, and one of your creative aspects has to do with cooking.
Yes.
And I've always been very impressed, knowing you now for a few years, Joanne, about how you volunteer your time once a month, is it?
Once a month.
A place that gives food out to people who need food.
Yes.
And you really engineer the whole show. And
For that day, it's, well, there are wonderful volunteers. And
where do you do this?
It's sponsored by an organization called Open Table that happens to be in Concord, Mass. And we feed about 125 to 150 people a week.
Now, Concord is a very nice suburb. So do the
Yes.
people come from far and wide to...
Well, it's interesting. There's a mix. I find that although I'm exhausted at the end of the day, it's so rewarding. It's both rewarding because you're with other people who have a similar mission, and we joke and enjoy one another's company. And it's also wonderful. We have a little time to go out and sit with some of the guests.
And you must have a lot of repeat customers.
Yes,
right?
yes, we do. And they...
So you get to know some people.
Yes, you do get to know some people and their stories.
How long have you been doing it?
I guess I've been doing it for about 6 years, I think. I mean, time goes fast. About 6 years, I would say.
Wow. Well, I think we covered
We
a large
covered a great
territory
deal.
about your life, Joanne.
I'm delighted to be here and to have
so
this
happy
conversation.
to have finally gotten you here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.